So what we've been able to do is and like she said, it's not like I'm coming with a 5 kilowatt system. You must use this 5 kilowatt. Bring everything. No. What will work for you?
Yeah.
What will help you in your business so that those 5,000 naira reduce? But we're talking to one of them, that the baker, and by the time she gave us the astronomical
Over
amount of money,
500,000, Abi?
that
Almost
she
a million
spends
naira
every
month on fuel or diesel. Come on.
and NEPA. It was crazy. I got scared.
To bring in perspective to this conversation today is how sustainable financial models can empower Nigerian women through access to renewable energy. Think about solar.
So now her system, if she is able to do it, she would actually drop that payment and we can actually work together with her to grow it. So this is the kind of thing we're doing. And it's not one system. Like I said, it's not 5 kilowatt and everybody takes it. No,
yes. It's customized.
It's customized.
Yeah.
It's bespoke to you and what works
business,
for you.
Many thanks for joining in. This is Matters That Do Matter. One of the key reasons why it surely does matter is these are conversations that a lot of people base their lives on, and a lot of people can base their life on. And one of those major conversations is what we're about to have today on Matters That Matter. I am Femi D. Amele. Well, today, let's talk about women who are jump starters, women who have broken ceilings, and women who have what it takes to be consistent with what they do. They have found a little bridge between technology and an economic model that makes a difference for them. And yes, people who have helped them to jumpstart this are going to be in a conversation with me. Yes, I'm Femi Diamela, like I mentioned. And yes, to mention a little bit more about the show, well, the show is essentially focused on shrinking civic spaces, renewable energy, just name it. Quite a number of things that really do make a difference. And that's what we're pushing for today. Yes, it's brought to you with support from the Heinrich Böll Foundation, HBS. They work with activists, thinkers in civil society, business, politics to stimulate public debate. And yes, this conversation is brought to you by Fan Radio Co., produced by Vibing Brands. And we're excited that we have Volume Pods as our distribution partner. To bring in perspective to this conversation today is how sustainable financial models can empower Nigerian women through access to renewable energy. Think about solar. Think about the many ways in which women are finding means to go forward beyond where people have said, oh, this is the biggest mark she can make. But they're making marks for their family, providing a future for their family and making a difference. So how are they doing it? Through cleaner, cheaper, reliable energy within their reach, and of course, innovative financial models to keep that going. Well, as we go on, we'll get to break this down about productivity, income, and much more. I have two wonderful guests with me today. Wenyimi Eribo, she's a renewable energy expert, and I'm really counting on the fact that I pronounced the name correctly. Please tell me I went in the right direction. Did I go? No, the look says no.
It's not
the name.
Oh.
So the renewable energy expert is Habiba.
Oh, it's Habiba.
She's the women gender-based gender
Yes, I'm
expert.
the gender expert.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, well, Wenyimi Eribo, I survived that again. She's Director General, Women Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Mines and Agriculture. She works with advanced women's economic inclusion by creating opportunities for women entrepreneurs and influencing gender-focused policies. She has strengthened both public and private sector institutions through strategic partnership, enterprise growth, and sustainable development projects. There's much more I can read about her, but I'm guessing you'll be able to find out more about her profile as we go on. Habiba Ali is also here with us. She's Managing Director, Sosai Renewable Energies Company. Yes, as the CEO of Renewable Energy Company as such, they have expanded access to clean energy in communities, promoted gender inclusion in the energy sector, and support sustainable development by aligning energy projects with global environmental and economic goals. I will tell you there's much more to the profile of these two wonderful women. Thank you so much for being on this podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
All right. It's interesting, and I would like to start with a very logical question. People say women make a mark for themselves. They've been classified, put in corners. And some will say, yes, let's give women more to do. But the model that you've built around is somewhere between women who discover technology and are also able to earn through technology. Walk us through how that space has been. Let me start with you, Habiba.
Okay, so thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here. And when you talk about women in renewable energies, I'll start a bit by talking about what renewable energies really is and how it can actually impact on economic growth. And this is the level that we're looking at it from. We all know that Nigeria has a dearth of energy resources, and the electricity provision now is really low. A current research found that about 60% of Nigerians across the rural and urban areas do not have access to reliable electricity. Electricity is key to development, as in for manufacturing, for business, for commercial activities, and all of that. Nigerian women, as Wayimi will later tell you, are hardworking women. Nigerian women can carry 2-3 businesses at the same time, whether they are in the rural areas or in the urban areas. One of the reasons why you will find them failing is access to electricity. And so what we are thinking about is, okay, how do we ensure that they do not fail by providing the right kind of electricity solutions for them? And this is why we're doing what we're doing. So when you look at the work of how does renewable energy impact upon the gender, it is simply through their economic growth. So how do we ensure that we firm up the economic growth of the woman, who in the long run, when she is empowered, when she is stronger, when she can provide for herself and family better, she will be able to carry the nation forward, as we all say. So that's where we marry it.
Yeah, and it brings me to if there's one way to power through what you said, is that there's energy poverty, essentially sometimes documented, sometimes not even documented, depending on where you go. And what's interesting, you may agree or disagree with me, is that sometimes women don't even know that there's energy poverty situation they are dealing with. How is it you've helped them to discover it, walk through it, and possibly see solutions through it?
I think that's a very interesting question, actually, because if you don't know something, then you don't know whether it exists or it doesn't, right? And in a lot of areas, especially rural areas, blackout is a normal thing. You go to communities where it's either lantern or candles or charcoal, something. They're using something outside of electricity because, in fact, you go to some places and even in a week, 2 weeks, 1 month, they'll tell you, oh, we haven't seen lights, and things like that. So what we did for us, I think I want to clarify something before we continue. Up until about 3 weeks ago, I was DG, pioneer DG for the Women Chamber, but I'm now building an ecosystem, of course, to continue to support women
fantastic.
entrepreneurs.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But what we've seen is, for women who run businesses, power is a major thing. The level of productivity or not, right, is totally dependent on the access to power and the amount of time that they have that access to power. So that was the gap that we saw. And in trying to design this, and I think one of the very interesting things that even happened recently was on social media. I don't know if you saw that video, but I saw a video of a woman who runs a food business. And because she didn't have light for over a week, she was literally bringing out spoiled food from her freezer, right? This is a woman-owned business who probably has maybe 5-7 staff, people that she's paying salaries, who are taking care of their own families as well. As outside of her own family that she's probably taking care of, right?
Yes.
One of the things that I always like to say is, when you see a woman, you don't just see her. There's a community behind her that you cannot see, that she's representing. So imagine if we have 120, 5,000 of those kind of businesses and those kind of failures coming out of. Imagine how much money they're losing on a daily basis. So what we said was, look, there's a close, just like Habiba has said, there's a nexus between power and the businesses that these women run. How do we close that gap? How do we ensure that we're able to put them in the middle of this problem that we're seeing, to ensure that we're not just driving solutions that we think that they need, but solutions that they actually need? And so this process really started with us saying, okay, let's bring these women in the room. But not just women. Let's bring women who are running businesses into a room across different sectors and have a deep conversation with them to see where the problems are and what the solutions can be, right? So earlier we had a room full of 100 women. In fact, I think we had planned for about 50, but we had a room full, and that day rain fell or something like that. It was something heavily that was supposed to stop them from coming out, but they came out. And we had a very fantastic conversation with them. We had women from agro-processing, we had women who were traders, we had women who were teachers, people who run schools, people who, really just move products around. There was another one, but we in the health sector, as well. but we had, a cross sector, sector of women across, different businesses that we're running. And we sat with them and we asked them, we said, okay, so in a day, how much time do you spend with power? What are the processes that use power? If you were, using this based on what you're currently doing, how much do you spend on power? So how much do you spend on NEPA? And how much do you spend on generator? Right? And then if you were going to be provided with an alternative to NEPA and generator, what were you willing to pay for this? If you are willing to pay for this, how are you willing to pay for this? So we asked them very strategic questions that helped us to get to a point where we were like, okay, these are the possible solutions that can help solve some of these energy gaps and energy problems that we see. And outside of that, after doing that, we brought them back again to say, okay, based off of the first conversation we had, this was the outcome of that conversation. Now, these are the chances that we see. These are the opportunities that we see to close this gap. Is it something that you're willing to take? And they all said yes.
And it's interesting that, because I'm thinking to myself, a good number, if you have over 100 women in the room and they think of how to beat NEPA, which is major. If you're beating generator, that's another major point. Those are two key things that sometimes can even take your entire capital out the drain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you start to wonder about the capital they need to raise. For example, with this offer, how much are you willing to pay for it? The next question is, how much are you asking me to pay for it? I'm guessing that's the kind of question.
Yeah, and during the solutions lab, right, as Wayne described earlier, one of the things that came out was seriously that they needed help. It was obvious that they were losing income, they were losing revenue. People were talking about just having energy for, say, for example, a restaurant owner has energy just for like 3 hours a day. So what happens with the remaining time? When a customer comes in and she really needs to quickly jot something into the microwave and warm for that customer to eat. Or a tailor who has not sewn anything for weeks simply because the power is not there and she's struggling with buying fuel or the generator is down and all of that. So all of them came up with this, I will pay anything if I can get it and be sure it will be there regularly. Yeah. And so we took an aggregation of what are they currently spending, right? Like when we said, we understood that depending on sector, the educationists, for example, were able to tell us, okay, averagely in a week or in a day, we spend X, Y, or Z amount of money. So that means in a month we're spending, so let's say they say 100,000 per day on fuel and generator and NEPA. And we're like, okay, can you translate that to 50,000 per day in repaying for a solar solution that would actually give you some sort of succor? And at the end of a certain period, you actually own that solution. And it was a welcome idea for all of them. And in the subsequent engagement, we were even able to bring into the room the Minister of Industry. And he was very excited about the whole opportunity. And he promised the women that if they were able to make this happen for their industries, and they are like the key, starters of this, then the government was going to see how they could make this go further for even other women in the value chain. We wanted financial institutions in the room. Unfortunately, we didn't get as many as we wanted because one of the, like you just said, okay, the next step then is going to be, how much do you want me to pay? And of course, we know, being business owners, women do not get that kind of support as much as the male folk will get. A man can go into a bank and raise 20 million naira. A woman will go with the same business plan and maybe get 2 million naira at best, right? So we also said, okay, how do we bring these financial institutions to the room so that we can throw it at them and say, this is a market for you. How do we support these women?
Yeah, it's interesting you do bring that up. And there's a part of me that also wants to ask questions about, so apart from this system you've talked about creating, and it sounds amazing system, people would say things like, oh, we're starting to build specialized banks in Nigeria. Have you had any conversation with a woman who says, I wrote a proposal or I put up a document, I asked for a microfinance loan in order to sort out my power. This was what they told me at this bank. Because sometimes it's important to also know why they are being turned down. Have you had any documented experience for those who have tried options outside of your system who say, oh, I got a no, and here's why? What's your thoughts?
For renewable energy itself, because that's her sector, I'll let her speak to that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
in terms of Do you want me to go into the business
Oh,
itself?
yes,
because I have so many documented. So I mean, I won't necessarily. This conversation is always dicey. So I mean, one of the things that I always say is banks will tell you that money is available. It's one thing for money to be available. It's one thing for it to be accessible, right? If money is available, but the criteria that you set makes it inaccessible for women to get that money, then it's not available, right? And I'll give you an example. If you tell me that to get a loan from the bank, I need to own a property. I need to use property as a collateral. If we do a survey in Nigeria, how many women actually have property? Sometimes even down to the culture does not allow women to own property. So if you're setting those kind of criteria, you already have removed more than half of the population, and you have unconsciously said more than half of the population cannot access funding. Right? So these are the kind of issues that we see. However, there's also the financial literacy part of it that we need to accelerate for women, because unfortunately, a lot of women don't know or understand or know how to even go about getting audited financial reports, getting business plans done, getting their tax certificates, and all of that. There's so much that needs to be done. So a man who probably, and then we will drill it down a bit more, you take it down to education. There's a lot more men who, I mean, if we do the survey up until secondary school, Yes. But after that, there's more men in schools than women, right? There's a lot of data that speaks to all of this. So you then find out that the financial literacy is not there. So of course, somebody who is better educated will approach a bank. If they tell him, go and get XYZ, he even knows where to get it. But if you tell the same woman XYZ, she probably doesn't know where to get it.
Or doesn't even know what it is.
Doesn't even know what it is. Right? So there are a lot of things in terms of the criteria that has been set to be able to access this funding that is already a problem and eliminates a lot of women from accessing this
any kind of business.
Regardless of the kind of business and regardless. Now, we see, however, that a lot of financial institutions, because there's a lot of noise globally that is being run through the renewable energy space, banks are now beginning to shift ground to say, okay, we have a fund for renewable energy. I think we were in a program last year or so where, certain, I'm not going to give anybody publicity, but certain banks are now saying, oh, we now have a fund, we're open to it, we want to work more with you guys to see how we can do this. And I mean, applause to them, but even if that is available, but then you're now setting criteria for people to access it that makes it inaccessible, then you're really not doing anything.
And to speak to it, coming from the renewable energy point of view, at the Solutions Lab, there was a certain woman who came to meet me and she said, I've applied to XYZ Bank and they told me, bring this, bring that. And I brought everything, but up till now, nothing for renewable energy solution. And I said, well, there are other banks. Well, I remember I gave her other, banks that were doing this out there then. But she came back and she told me, did you check the percentage? And I'm like, actually, I didn't. She said, okay, check it. By the time we checked it, this woman was going to be paying almost half of the amount of the solution in interest by the time she was done paying for that solution.
That means the interest rate is possibly astronomical.
Yeah, it's astronomical. So, because they collect money on a month interest rate, you pay, there are fees you pay in the beginning. There is a month-on-month interest rate that they pay and all of that. And then in the long run, we're stuck. Right? I, as a business owner, can only do this much and say, okay, you know what? I can give you a solution for, say, 3 months, pay me back. Because I also need my money to run around and do my own business, right? And then she is there. She needs at least 12 months to be able to do the repayment. But somebody is willing to give it to her to make the repayments happen. But the interest rate is crippling. And so, and this is not just because she's a woman. I mean, that's the interest rate across board. But the man can, one thing you should know about women, and that's also another thing that maybe also limits us, is women are very cautious people. Where a man will go all out and say, oh, okay, I pay 50,000 in the long run, no problem. The woman will be looking at that 50,000 and say, what if I don't end up paying? Would they come and collect my child? So she's already building these scenarios around her possibility of not paying. She's not that, then immediately like that cold feet sets in and she just steps back.
High risk and stamina too.
So women don't like high risk stuff. Men can beat their chests and do it because a man doesn't mind if you are chasing him for your money. You can chase.
He can off his phone.
He can off, like but a woman will feel. I mean, at least most women, will feel that thing that, oh God, I'm actually doing someone bad and want to, Of course, I'm not saying there are not any woman who, whatever, let us not so we'll carry them, But men are more prone to say, oh, I'll face it than women will face it when it comes to being indebted to anyone.
It's interesting you do bring that up when it comes to debt portfolio because almost any business in Nigeria, you have. I'm not even sure what the point where you cross into profit anymore in Nigeria.
Yeah,
it's just you're floating for a very long time.
Yeah.
And the textbook definition for small, medium scale businesses, it's different from reality.
Yeah.
Even what is small in Nigeria seems you are having to do with millions of naira and one way or the other.
And we have nano now.
Yeah, we now have nano now. Yeah. Nano. When we think about money, you mentioned an example of 100,000 naira as the amount you possibly can pay at the end of the month for running generator fees and the likes of that. But it doesn't actually come up as 100,000. Look like, go and buy petrol 5,000, buy petrol 2,000.
Tell me about it.
It adds up. I'm thinking about the system which you have created around the solar renewable energy for women to access now. And how is it being accepted? What's the conditioning that makes it a little bit, let's say, a little bit more easy compared to institutional funding like banks and having to borrow 5,000 to buy petrol and the likes of that? Let me start off with you.
I think Habiba will best answer, but because I love the question, I'll throw a bit and then I'll throw it to her.
It's fine.
And I say that because she's actually the one. So Sosai Renewable Energy, which is what Habiba leads, is really the one who's coming with the solution. So what we've done with this is we launched out a program that we called the HAR Energy. And to do that, we brought a number of women-owned businesses and we said, you know what, these are the issues that we have seen. This is what we're proposing. And that proposal was this. We will do an energy audit of your business, see where you need energy most. So Sosai Renewable Energy will then design an energy solution for you. Based off that energy solution that will enhance your capacity as much as possible, we now give you what that payment will look like. However, the interest rate that was proposed was very low compared to what the banks will give you.
Give me an idea of what that
It was actually zero interest, to be honest.
Okay.
And then you have a moratorium to pay first. And then you have the option of paying monthly, weekly, however best suits the kind of business that you run. And there was one more thing that made it really sweet. There's one more thing I can't remember. Before the end of the show, I'll probably get it back. But we literally gave them a solution that could work for them. A solution that they were going to be a part of designing. So if we come into your business and we ask you, what are your key activities? If you don't need to power 5 lights, but you need to power, a blending machine, we'll probably use that energy for you, whatever is going to improve the capacity of your business, right? And that's the solution that we brought to them based off of what we saw from both events, the solutions lab and then the reporting, events the follow-on event that we had. And the women that we brought, because also it's a lot of money, right? It's capital intensive.
Yes, it
so
is.
we started with 5 women, and that's the pilot that we're currently running. So now I will hand it over to Habiba.
So talking about the pilot, like she said, it's capital intensive, and what we were able to look at was, okay, what does Sosai currently have on ground and can actually defer payment? Because even us to raise the money to be able to help these women was now proving very difficult. We could have done 20 women, 30 women, 40. If I had a bank behind that said, here's the money, just do the project, right? But unfortunately, the money was not there. And what we could simply do was say, okay, let's look inwards. What can we defer that our strengths can carry? And then we were able to look at our solutions that were on ground. And we said, okay, you know what? Let's work with this. And that meant we could work with 5 women. Fortunately and unfortunately, one of those 5 women is really energy guzzling. And one of the things that we are deciding to do is sit down with her, the spa.
Oh, I see.
Sit down with her and say, okay, you know what, how do we look at this? Then talk to the banks and see how do we reduce the interest rates so that she can actually access this and, grow with it. So what we've been able to do is and like we said, like she said, it's not like I'm coming with a 5 kilowatt system. Take, you must use this 5 kilowatt. Bring everything. No. What will work for you?
Yeah.
What will help you in your business so that those 5,000 naira reduce? But we're talking to one of them, that the baker, and by the time she gave us the astronomical
Over
amount of money.
500,000, Abi?
Yeah, that
Almost
she
a million
spends
naira
every month
on fuel.
on
or
fuel
diesel. Come on.
and NEPA. It was crazy. I got scared. So now her system, if she is able to do it, she would actually drop that payment, and we can actually work together with her to grow it. So this is the kind of thing we're doing, and it's not one system. Like I said, it's not 5 kilowatt and everybody takes it. No,
Yes. It's customized.
it's customized.
Yeah.
It's bespoke to you and what
your
works for
business,
you.
yeah.
Unfortunately, like I said, the spa is one person that we might have to have a sit down and design a specific system that works for her. I'm already pulling my wings at my contacts as well, and using our networks to see if there are, even if it is international organizations who can support that for her. And then, because we have a meat shop that we did it for at Sosai level, that we worked at the Dutch organization to fund, and they are funding it, and the system is up and running.
I think about this, and you use the spa as an example. I mean, that is a business with a lot of metrics. Oh, she puts on this, she switches this, she needs 5 kilowatts of this. But there's also the people who are dwellers, rural dwellers, right? And a lot of their business are identical. Let's say 5,000 women who are doing things that are very similar, one way or the other, similar market. A lot of the market analysis around what they do is similar. And you talked about a pilot program for 5 people. What's your approach to women who are rural dwellers, right? Because a large number of women, right? A large number of women who are not city-bound, whose business is even difficult to analyze, right? They pick from down there, from inside the apron and say, go and buy. So it's even difficult to say capital, profit, loss. The math is messed up.
Thank you very much for asking that question. We were both speaking towards the Her Energy program currently, but there's another program that we do at the Sosai level, and Wemi has actually been on my neck to see it. We got support from the EU and did a program called the Market Map. What that Market Map does is assess what kind of businesses that are adding value to agriculture do women do in a certain place. And once we found out those kind of businesses and where they need support when it comes to renewable energies, we were able to use the Market Map tool to find these businesses, at the same time develop business plans on the tool, such that in the long run, the banks can come and say, okay, if I want to fund a woman who is doing milling, for example, what does she need to switch from fossil fuel powered milling machines to a solar powered one? We have that business plan already built in the Market Map tool. And then to further prove the proof of concept for them, because that's what banks want to hear, is that we developed another app that is working side by side with the tool. So the women can keep their daily records of what they are currently doing. We did a pilot for about 30 women. So we did irrigation pumps, milling machines, refrigerators, and all were solar powered, and milling machines and solar dryers as well. And what we're seeing with the results is that this is actually what we want. So we've been able to approach a bank of agric to help support that so that these people can get disbursement. And I think we're at the point where they wanted us, as Sosai, to stand, and they needed collateral from us and all of that. And this is another thing, like when Amy said, most of us don't have land. Most women, if you look at it, most women don't build. They don't have property of their own. And if I need 100,000 naira, and you're telling me to bring property of 300,000, if I had that property of 300,000, my village people would have given me 100,000, because they will know I'm good for the money. I don't need you and your interest rated money anyways. And women have a habit of doing small cooperatives at Jaws and all of that.
I was just going to speak to that.
When we can decide that I want to start selling sugarcane tomorrow, and she's in the adjust, she says, okay, I need 50,000 naira. By the time it's at turn, she's packing 100,000. She will do her as a reke business. So I think that's also a sad reality, that this is the reason why financial institutions still think about women as small, because we're able to even survive on our adjust and all of that. But I tell everybody who brings an ajo to me that I'm not going to do an ajo that's less than ₦1 million and minimum 10 people. Because with 10 million, I can do something chunky. But if I'm doing a ajo that me and you are struggling 100,000, 200,000, I will not do it. But I'm only saying this because I'm at this level. But there are women that 100,000 can start an akara business for her.
Saving too much.
Do you understand? She can start akara immediately tomorrow. So, yes, I agree there are small women, but it's not everybody that's small. There are also women who want to actually lead reasonable businesses that will end up helping those small women.
Yeah, let me just add a bit to that, because one of the things that we're also seeing, and this is also a project that even Sosai is a part of, but we're now seeing the need to support women in clusters, right? We're seeing the power in supporting women in clusters, because there's only so much an individual business can do, first of all, by themselves, and there's only so much support that they can access, right? So when we support women in clusters, we see that we can expand that access that we're giving to them, even to energy, even beyond finance. And I'll give 2 examples because Sosai is here. We both worked on a project with the UNDP, where the UNDP provided 4 clusters actually.
4. No, they even were able to. It was supposed to be 4 clusters, but they've been able to spread some of the equipment to a fifth cluster.
And what that in that project, what we did was to provide solar-powered equipment for these women. So I'll give you 2 examples. We have one in Abuja, and that cluster serves about 400 women, right? And they were provided with a solar-powered dehydrator and slicer.
Okay.
So for women who are doing spices, dried fruits, things like that, they have access to that machinery. Another one in Mina was provided with a solar-powered oil processing, machine. So women who do shea butter, all those kind of small creams and cover, they now have access to that, right? As opposed to providing for just one person. Now, these were provided as grants, right? So we're seeing that there's also the Gary one.
There's the Gary one that now spread, because there was Gary Fryer and then there was Gary Miller. So Gary Fryer has now been sent to one cluster, and then the Fryers, the Millers now shared to 2 clusters. So we now have 5 clusters.
Yeah. So there's it's not like there's the neglect of women who are running smaller businesses, but we're seeing that we need to change the approach in how we support smaller businesses, because also, just like Habiba said, the cooperative model has worked for so long, we cannot ignore it. The ajo model, the cooperative, it has worked for so long. We cannot, and I mean, even just to throw it out there, I'm actually building a more standardized cooperative model in one of the new companies that I'm running to actually support women in trade, because we cannot continue to ignore what is working for us as a nation or as a continent and be looking at global systems that probably don't speak to our needs. Do you understand? That do not speak to our needs. So we've seen the need to change the way that we approach providing solutions for women-owned businesses, especially for rural women. One of the things that I always say is not everybody can export, right? But everybody can be a part of the value chain of export. So the woman who now has a solar-powered renewable milling machine can become somebody who provides pure soya oil or shea oil or whatever to a cosmetic company who is exporting, right? She's not exporting directly, but she's part of that value chain, right? For women who do fashion, if you empower an adire cluster to improve the quantity of adire they produce in a day or in a week or in a month, she then supplies a fashion designer who's already exporting. Right? But a lot of these women who do these things do it in clusters, so we cannot ignore the clusters. So we're now going back to say, how do we work with more rural women more women in rural areas through the cluster and cooperative models that have worked for a long time?
And sorry, you're scratching us at the places where it really does itch. And I hope we don't derail your questions and all of that. But just to add to that, right? When you talk about even the manufacturing of, we know that it's a value chain and all of that. Let's not even think exports alone. Internal market is big.
Yeah.
For example, now I was telling I had a class this morning and I was telling them, I said, the reason why a solar milling machine is good for a community where they do grains, for example. And beside that milling machine, you have a sealer. Is that if I farm maize, me can mill it,
somebody can still
Mary can
carry
seal
it to
it,
market.
right? even in that community, somebody that did not find farm maize can buy from Mary because
Yeah.
it saves her the trouble of going to buy corn,
and milling
looking
it.
for milling machine, and make so she can just buy that.
Value process.
Yeah.
So
Implemented.
I'm trying to say that export is good, but even internally, there's a huge
There's
market.
a huge market. There's
Yeah,
a huge market.
but you know, of interest as well. One of the things that I understand carefully when it comes to, you know, some people say, oh, you've brought in a corporate idea into a system that is already working. We are doing our cooperative. We are the entire value chain as women. We don't want to be cheated. We know when we carry it to the market, if the transport cost was 500 naira, when I get to the park today, they now say 600 naira. I know how to move the value of my market and, you know, translate the cost over to the final person. And so I want to be in charge of the entire system, right? That's a mentality, or should I say an approach that sits with women and men alike when it comes to the typical market structure. But then it drags onto, for example, the issue of solar panels. People who have milled, I'll give a very unkind example. When we're younger, my mom used to enjoy to say, go and grind pepper in the don't grind with this iya Mario, go to
this
iya
other
this
one.
one. Our own machine will leave oil, this one will not leave oil. Then there's a way the tomato when it
Will
comes
taste.
from will taste different from when you use a blender. So even when blender was like 3-4 in my house at some point in time, inclination was this two will be tasting a little bit different.
No, but that blue machine, the taste is different. I
Yeah,
agree.
I agree. Even my moi with leaves is different from, no matter what you tell me about canned moi, it's always different from. But then it brings forward, that analogy drives me towards the example of solar panels. Women will say, oh, okay, I've done my milling using this kind of energy for a long time. Now you're asking me to do solar. Will this thing grind well? We did all of that. How is resistance to those technological changes I know you will respond on behavior. I know she'll probably respond on the technology.
So the machine doesn't change.
Doesn't change.
It's just the power that
It's
changes.
the power that
Power
changes.
source.
And they don't care about the power source anyway. They just want it to work, right? So the milling machine is still a milling machine. It's just the energy source behind it that changes.
And you have no resistance. They don't put up any form of
In
resistance.
fact, it is welcoming.
I see.
Yeah, because they're like, I didn't know I could do it. Like, they don't
The
care.
only
They don't even have to
resistance-
buy fuel
The
anyway.
only resistance is that initial capital cost. That's,
That's
the
the,
only resistance.
that's
we
the
see.
huge resistance.
And
you get.
everybody's resistant to that.
Because sometimes, why do you bring up the issue of resistance for women sometimes, and men are
And
like
when you talked,
anybody in it?
when
Yes,
you
go on,
talked
go on.
about initial capital cost, I remember that's the point you forgot when you were listing. Instead of paying 20 to 30% down payments for the technology, now in this program we're paying 10.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
So the point I was talking about when it comes to resistance is even up to the point of behavior. So for example, so at some point, you have to pass battery, a trailer battery to power the panel, all those kind of things.
But they're not the ones.
They are not
setting it
the
up.
ones doing it, right? I understand. But I'm just thinking about what am I paying for? You
Yeah.
know, there are sometimes the questions where you say,
Yeah.
okay, no interest, no wahala. What are they bringing? How do you know what they're bringing? I mean, at this level, it's good for you to...
I think
Yeah.
that because of the conversations that have been ongoing around
Oh, I
renewable
see.
energy, and I mean even people some
BCC, behavioral communication.
you know, and then you have some communication companies. I'm not calling anybody's names, but communication companies that already have small this is charge your battery here, charge your phone here.
I see.
You know, so there's a bit of knowledge about these things that's already ongoing. But now, especially when it comes to businesses, and once you tell them, look, after band A, everybody wants something cheaper.
Do you understand?
You understand? So band A and band B and band C has made the conversation a lot. So people are like, okay, what are the options? You know, but the only resistance I cannot even deny is it's expensive. That's the first thing. And then you now tell them, okay, you know what, we can walk through a payment plan for you. We can support you with a payment plan, or we can introduce you to an organization that has a payment plan that can help you walk through this. But so far, I think that's the only resistance that personally I've experienced, you know, with the women.
Government as we have it in Nigeria, right, at different levels, local government, state level, even federal level, there's something Gen Zs and a little bit people from my generation will call audio call, which is we have audio money, we will, you know. And you find that especially when it comes to women, because there's no strong advocacy sometimes or mechanism to even checkmate accountability for what they say versus what they do at community level. you find that they say, I'm coming back, and they get away with some of these things. And I'm wondering what type of advocacy is going on for renewable energy as it relates to gender this time around, such a way that it is not, we are coming back, but there's something to measure and mark.
I think that there's so much already that's ongoing, and the reason this gap in terms of this is how it works, this is how it works, and then I'll come back is the reason why Her Energy was launched because we needed them to experience it. Right. And when it's done well, you won't have to talk too much because they will be the ones who will be spreading the message of renewable energy and the need for you to be able to switch to renewable energy. So what we've done with that is to follow up with them. Right? It's not just we had one or two programs because unfortunately you find that that's what we see. There's a lot of programs here and there, but after that there's really nothing that follows through. And I think that's one of the things that we saw that the women appreciated because it's a number of the women who were at the Solutions Lab were at the second event, who were there to actually validate, some of the outcomes from the Solutions Lab that we brought into the second event.
And during the call, the number of women who applied,
it was incredible. It was incredible. In fact, we didn't think we were going to be able to get 20 people who will be interested. I think by the time that thing was done, we had over 200. And this is just in Abuja. We were clear, just in Abuja. So we see the hunger for it. There's a need for it. But even at that, there'll still be a need for follow-up. We need to put things in place, structures in place to let them see that, okay, these are not just people who are just coming to talk about these things, but there's actually something in place to support them, to get into the renewable energy space.
Yeah. And, adding to that, we are also very mindful that the word needs to get out. And so what Heinrich Böll is actually the one that's supporting this process. So let's mention that. Yay!
No. I don't think we should do it in passing. Heinrich Böll. When I remember, it was sometime last year before this entire process started, I reached out to Habiba. I said, look, sis, I have this idea, shared it with her. It's fantastic. She improved here. We did a lot of back and forth. And then we came to that point. Who's going to fund this? Who is going to help us? Who is going to push this message out with us? And it took one conversation with Heinrich Böll, with Ikena, one conversation. And he's like, women, let's do this. And I mean, it's been fantastic. It's one thing to run a program, but it's one thing to run a program with an organization that understands not just the need for the program, but for the need for the support for the kind of people that you're supporting. So it was a fantastic marriage, really. So understanding of the renewable energies and the need to support women. And then we really just brought that together. And I think also, just to give kudos to us also, is the energy that we've brought to this project. I think even Heinrich Böll has said it to us that, look, we want to continue to work with you guys because
they warned me. They told me you're super busy. I should make sure I stay to the schedule.
Yeah. So, running this whole women thing and having the women also being interested, for us, it was very key that the process is also documented. And so we have a film that we're building now. We've done the baseline, the videographer has already taken the baseline situation through the process of doing the call. No, okay, she wasn't involved in the call, but after the selection of the women, she's been involved with the baseline discussion with the women. During the audit, she was part of it. So they are covering all of this information. So when you talk about how do we spread this, the plan is at the end of this 6 months process, we push it out there. This is what we're able to do with just 5 women. Please, we need help to do it for 300 women. So, and Heinrich Böll is supporting
there's nothing like proof of concept, and that's what Heinrich Böll is helping us to do with this project. So,
and it's a fantastic way to think about it. And in this space, there's a lot of development partners who tell you they are inclined towards renewable energy, towards solar and many of those other things, but they are more interested in engaging towards policies, advocacy, and reports, and the likes of that. It then brings forward the question about reports and pragmatic sense of direction when it comes to this. Are you comfortable with some of the models that you've developed for these women, right? Because I can assume that if you're doing it 6 months with 5 women, there will be need to adjust, to calibrate, and say what works and the likes of that. What do you make of scaling up your model, right? Even as it is now, what are some of the biggest strengths of the model? And what are some of the ones that you think there's an opportunity to amplify, to tweak a little bit more?
Well, I think Wayne will have better answers to this, but just so you know, currently as is, the interest of the women is one of the things that's even driving this process, because
Yes.
I remember after the audit, there was a bit of a lag from our own end, and the women kept reaching out like,
How far now?
I see.
guys, you said this, and so not to fall into that thing of audio something, we had to go back to the drawing table and all of that and do this. And currently, they've not had it installed yet, so just be mindful of that. But I think within the next 2 weeks, we should be done with the discussions and all of that. But now we are going back to them and saying, okay, individually, what have you seen in the offer that was made to you? What conversations do you want to have? So that if there's a need to tweak, we have to tweak. Yeah. So if that 10% is not doable, okay, do we start from ground up?
I see.
It's 12 months you're paying. We divide everything by 12. Take it from there. Or do we now look at it and say, okay, let's look at your system. Do we tweak it to reduce it so that you can do it? Those are the kind of tricks we're seeing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because this question that you've asked is the reason why there's a pilot, right? So this 5 women is actually the pilot, because some of the outcomes of the other things, part of the project that we did was different kinds of models, right?
Yes.
For financing, there's the pay as you go model, there's the cooperative model, there's the pay small model, and so that's what we're literally testing, right? What we currently have going is the pay as you go. What she has just said is we'll go to them and say, look, this is what has been offered to you. Is it something that you can do? If pay small is not an option, maybe we want to do pay as you go. Right? There's so many models. There's a cooperative model. Okay, how else do you think you can fund this? What can we bring to the table? So the reason it's a pilot is because we understand that we cannot design solutions for people that do not speak to their needs. So we're open. And which is why we said, let's also try to do it within a circle that we can not necessarily control, right? 5 women, we can work with that and say, okay, we tweaked for this, we tweaked for that. Did this work? Did it not work? Because let's not forget, at the end of the day, Sosai is a business.
Yes.
If they don't pay, she will fail. Her business will close. She will earn her community that she's feeding. So we also need to do it in a controlled environment, in a sense, where we see, okay, and at the end of the day, one person might be able to do pay small, even within the 5, and another might do pay as you go. Right?
And another may just say, you know what, guys, I think I can afford it. Let me just
pay off. So that's why the pilot really is there. We're just trying to test the models that we have come up with from the other parts of the project that have been done before now.
Okay. As we round off, I'm thinking to myself, do you think the approach of having a woman champion, because in Nigeria, sometimes you have a flagship person that takes on the cause and says, I no go agree until this thing is, scaled at a level. Do you think that approach could work? I'm thinking maybe the Minister of Women Affairs, the wife of the president. Do you ever want to have that adventure? Is that going to be an asset to renewable energy or power hustle situation for women?
I do know across several projects that I've worked on that having a champion will always push things forward. However, you need a champion that understands and is able to speak the language and understands, right? So it's not just having a figurehead champion, which is why we see that a lot of certain things don't move forward. But if we find that, I know both of us actually have visited the Minister of Women Affairs, and she was very open, to the conversations and seeing how renewable, and we had even met her at another events actually that said, so she's open to it, but we haven't taken the champion conversation to her, right? She might be willing to do it. I don't know. Minister of Trade and Investments might be willing to do it as well.
Exactly.
It's not a conversation that we will rule out if we are able to actually get a champion who understands. And I don't even think it's something we should over-explain because the benefits are there, right?
Yeah.
But if we do get a champion to speak to, women's transition to renewable energy, not just even for their families, but also for business and as part of industry and adding to the GDP of the country, why not, right? So, yeah.
So I like that you said power her hustle. And I'm like, her energy.
Yeah, power her hustle.
So what I'm even thinking is, this is very good. Very great idea. So, and I think we made a tagline out of this. So we will actually think about it. I think we should look at it. Because we do have 2 champions that can actually shift the needle for us. The Minister of Industry and the Minister of Women Affairs.
Yeah, and they're both women, actually.
So currently, it's just to revisit the conversation and put it back on the table for them and say, okay, you were there, you supported us to start. Can we do something bigger? Can you help us amplify this?
In fact, somebody whispered to me when I was prepping for this and said, oh, now that they've removed subsidy in Nigeria and there's claim of that there's money available. Okay, I think I have my first answer.
No, I don't know where the money is. But
That's the
I mean, we
problem.
don't know where the money is. If we knew where the money is, we'll go and tell them, give us X% of XYZ.
I see.
Right? We hear that, this money is being saved, but do we know where the money is? So in the money that's being saved now, who is it?
Who is housing it?
Who is housing it?
What are the mechanisms towards accessing it?
Because if it is there, it will help. If we could actually access some level, I mean, when I say we, for the women,
Yes,
right?
of
If
course
we
I
could
do.
actually access that money, it will go a long way because it will then bring subsidy in renewable energy where we actually do need it now with the craziness of electricity and everything that's going on, right? I mean, I'm supposed to be on band B in my house, but I mean, every day they're taking lights. In fact, yesterday they almost spoiled my freezer. If I had renewable, even I don't even have yet. Is that bad?
I know the price of batteries, trailer batteries that they use for panels now.
Yeah.
No. Please.
Oh,
Please.
okay.
Please.
Yes, I'm with
You
you.
do
Advocates.
not use trailer batteries for solar solutions. That is a quack installation.
Why? Please educate
That is
me.
not the battery. You have dry cells that are specific
For-
to solar installations, or lithium-ion batteries, or deep tubular gel batteries. Please, they are not trailer batteries. When I hear it hurts me. You said it the first time. I wanted to bite, but I said, okay, hold on.
Do you know why I say it so? Because that's the slang that every Nigerian
That's what I'm
say.
saying. Because
we
now
don't
Nigerians,
even
we
know
like
the difference.
cheap.
No,
We like
funny
cheap.
enough.
Let me explain to you.
Hold on, Habiba. Funny enough, in my head, technically, it's lithium batteries. But the slang that what's the solar
It
panel?
is not
Go and buy
trailer battery.
battery.
Before somebody will hear you on air and go and say they are using trailer battery.
that's
That's
what
what that guy said on his program.
But that's what people
That's
say.
not what people say. The
Oh.
right kind of battery is the lithium-ion battery.
Lithium, okay.
VRLA batteries, or that's tubular gel, or deep cycle, dry cell. Those kind of names.
That's
Please.
a lot. That's a lot to take
Okay,
in on one day.
just say lithium battery.
Lithium batteries.
Or
I'll
dry
stay with
cell.
that. I will
Or
stay
dry
with
cell,
that.
or dry cell. Yes.
It's been amazing talking to both
Thank you
of you
so
this
much.
very lovely
Thank
day.
you so
My
much.
guest has been, of course, Weyimi Eribo. She has advanced work on women's economic inclusion by creating opportunities for women entrepreneurs and influencing gender-focused policies. And you know why now. She has strengthened both public and private sector institutions through strategic partnerships, enterprise growth, and sustainable development projects. Additionally, she has built up leadership capacity across West Africa by mentoring emerging leaders and driving social innovation through global fellowships and network. Also, being on the show will have to be Habiba Ali. Passionate, you might have find. CEO of Sosai Renewable Energies. They've expanded access to clean energies in communities, promoted gender inclusion in the energy sector, supported sustainable development by aligning energy projects with global environmental and economic goals. And they both have provided strong perspective, even for men, if I would say, because I would tell you one truth, it's of interest to be able to see the value chain that they've explained and also understand the opportunities, especially if you run a financial institution. We're starting to have what you call specialized banks in Nigeria, and it will be very interesting to see how they're able to put a lot of women in a position of advantage and feel good at doing it, not just for business sake, but also for the corporate social responsibility reasons. What they both have explained to you, how to power also using our own energy. And of course, she, the woman that we talk about over and over again, whether it's your sister, mother, or whoever is a relative, she is a leader of a community. She may not just be in the forefront, but she is the front of the community in all that she does. And that's been it. This conversation, of course, has been brought to you by Heinrich Böll Foundation, HBS. They've been amazing and been on the forefront of renewable energy stories and conversations and supporting work with action. And yes, produced by Vibing Brands, and yes, through Fine Radio Co. And yes, we're glad that Volume Pods as one of the distribution partners. Thank you so much for watching it. I'm Femi D. Amele.